Hello, everyone. Very warm welcome. SAP Community call with the SAP Activate team today. My name is Lena. I'm part from the SAP Community and Influencers team, and I'm moderating this call today with my colleague Nishat Fatima from the SAP Activate team, and our three lovely speakers, Anchal Tobra, Lisa Kaut, and Jan Musil, who are going to present to you about SAP Activate, SAP S/4HANA Cloud, three-system landscape. As always, SAP Community Call is a 60-minute session here live on YouTube. The recording is right available with the very exact same link that you're currently streaming and joining us. We have Lisa, Anchal, and Jan present to us, and then we have a dedicated Q&A towards the end of the session. The Q&A will take place in our chat here on YouTube, and you can, of course, already start asking questions during the presentation. Nishat will address them then towards the end. And with that being said, I'll hand over to Nishat already to start with the agenda.
Thanks, Lena. Hi, everyone. My name is Nishat Fatima. I'm the SAP Activate Community Lead. I'm super excited to host you guys today and have you with us live. And for our audience who are using the recorded versions, again, feel free to reach out to us on the community anytime. With that, I'm going to start sharing my screen so we can talk about our agenda and talk about our speakers and what we have to look forward to today. So today we're going to talk about the three-system landscape. I'm going to do a quick introduction, talk about the newly introduced SAP Activate Minute, some updates on the community. Then Jan's going to talk about the current state and the future direction of SAP Activate. Then Lisa will kick us off with what three-system landscape is and give us an overview of that and what the upgrades look like. And then Anchal's going to provide a product expert perspective on customer adoption of the three-system landscape. And then, as Lena mentioned, feel free to add your questions to the YouTube chat. I'll be monitoring that throughout the session as the speakers talk, and we'll have a dedicated good 15 to 20 minutes at the end where we will address these questions. And if any questions that we did not address in this call, Christina from our team is going to be writing a blog post following this call. So look forward to that blog post. And as always, use the SAP Activate community in the Q&A tab to ask any questions that you might have. So kicking right in, if you guys have missed this, we introduced an SAP Activate Minute. What this is a quick minute video of an SAP Activate related topic that we release every Friday. And you can access this via a YouTube playlist or on the SAP Activate community. And if you have topic ideas or you want to learn something about it, feel free to use the community platform to let us know. And then join the Activate community for up-to-date news and content. And then before I hand it over to Jan, I kind of wanted to talk about the community, right? So this is the playlist where all the SAP Activate minutes will be released and the SAP Activate community calls. So this call will be added to this after our session here. And these are all the Activate minutes that have already been released. Feel free to subscribe to it so you get the updates every Friday. And then our Activate community, if you go into the blogs, all the blog posts will be here. Feel free to write your own blog post so we get to know your perspective and your insights on how you're using Activate in your projects or any expertise that you want to share with our community. We always welcome that. And then we also have a subtopic page that you can access where again, the SAP Activate minutes can be accessed through here. You just click the link and it will take you to the playlist that I shared. And if you scroll down, you have overview documents here. You have some customer success stories. If you want to learn more about Activate and do a learning journey, those are listed here. and some of the courses that SAP offers. All those are accessible through our subtopic page, which you can access when you go to our community page. Browse this topic, you can access the subtopic page directly here. And then as always, follow the community. If you're not following, click the follow button here. We greatly appreciate your insights and your collaboration, and this community is made up because of people like you. So thanks again, and handing it over to Jan.
Thank you, Nishat and Lena, for taking us through the introduction. Let me share my screen because I'll be doing some demos as well. But I have first few slides I wanted to share with you. Just continuing and building up on what Nishat has talked about in terms of community. This is really one of our best ways to engage with you, and for you to the best way to engage with us. We are always trying to, think of fun ways of sharing the information, sharing news updates, and we have kind of accustomed into this mode of, providing release notes, any new developments, anything that's coming new from the community in form of blog posts. We're now playing around with Activate Minute. It's still fairly fresh. We're learning as we go. If you have feedback, if you like something, let us know. If you don't like something, let us know as well. And especially if you have topics that you want us to cover, we're kind of starting with the basics and building up to a little more advanced topics, but we want to keep it within the 60 seconds. So, when you're waiting in Starbucks to get your coffee, or you're waiting for your lunch to be prepared in cafeteria, you can use those 60 seconds to learn something, kind of bite-sized learnings. We have a lot of interesting topics that we have already in the schedule, but we'll always consider input from the community as well. We are doing a couple of things within the community besides the minutes, the blogs, and the Q&A. We're also supporting a number of different enablement sessions. So you may see us talking about Activate within the SAP ecosystem, talking with our ecosystem partners, with our customers, with our user groups. So you will see Activate throughout other channels, but we always try to tie it back to the community and share the information with the community. You will also see a lot of blog posts that are coming up either from Activate into our sister communities and vice versa. So we are very close with our colleagues that are running community for SAP Cloud ALM, colleagues that are running the community for S4HANA, S4HANA Cloud. All those topics are kind of, cross-shared between the communities. So you'll see that going forward as well. So that's really been big focus for us this year, and it continues to be focus for us into the future. So, in terms of community, we're not taking our foot off the gas pedal just yet. We really want to use this to the maximum extent. The second topic I want to talk about, and that may be new to some of you that may not be staying up to date on all the developments in application and lifecycle management, but we just celebrated earlier this year 1-year anniversary of introducing SAP Cloud ALM to all customers. It's an environment that really supports you in using Activate in your project, and all the stuff that Anshul and Lisa will be talking about after me is inside Cloud ALM. So all the content that Lisa will be covering is inside Cloud ALM. What is really exciting is that you can play with Cloud ALM right away. You don't have to request anything. You don't have to ask for something. There is a environment that you can use to try Cloud ALM on your own. So let me show you how you can do that, and it's very simple. So I'm in the browser. I'm on the support portal on Cloud ALM page. And how you get here is support.sap.com and then navigate through ALM to SAP Cloud ALM. So that's the page where I am. There's this big button, try. So I'm going to click on that, and that will take me to the public demo tenant. Within here, I can play different roles. Depends on whether I want to be admin, business process expert, change manager, project manager. I have kind of a background in project management, so I'm going to just grab the password here quickly and go back up and launch access to Cloud ALM. So this is going to take me to Cloud ALM. I'm going to enter Paul and my password and log in. No, I don't want to store this password. So this is going to take me into Cloud ALM, and in here you can set up a new project. So let me stand up a new project in Cloud ALM. So while the screen is loading, I'm going to think of a name for my project. So I'm going to call it SAP Activate Community. And if you log on to the system, you will find it. The other thing that I'll do is I'll pick up my task template. Task template is which SAP Activate version I'm going to be using. I'm not going to go into the details, but basically I'm using the 3-system landscape, and I'll keep the rest as is. I can set up additional details, but that's all I need for now. So this is all it takes for me to set up a project and start using it. When I want to see the tasks in that project, I just jump into the task list. Maybe not. Here it is. So I'll need to find my project, and it was called SAP Activate. Well, let me search for it, but basically what you get in that project, and I'll pick another 3-system landscape project that we have in here. Can you guys see any 3 in the list? I think we have too many. 3SL demo. Let me pick that one. So in this project, it's the same task list that I would be loading into my project. So if I'm going in here, I can go into a task and it will give me the details of the task. Exactly the same information that you will find in Roadmap Viewer. Only this one is for fully managing the project, assigning the tasks to individual team members, managing the status of it, and so on. So a lot more capabilities. So use SAP Cloud ALM in your next implementation project, especially if you're implementing cloud solution. The next one I want to talk about is Rise with SAP Adoption Framework. This is a set of content that we have added into a private cloud edition roadmap recently. And we're right now working to bring this into our public cloud roadmap as well. And that's something that you can expect to see in the future in Activate. Right now, you can go into the private cloud and look for Rise with SAP Adoption Framework view in more views on the left side in Roadmap Viewer. And it will give you access to the activity map task list that's in the adoption framework. So that's one innovation that we are planning to bring into the public cloud as well. Next thing, you have heard us talking about experience management in implementation projects. This is something, again, that we have started to bring into the private cloud edition, and that's another asset that we'll be bringing into the public cloud relatively quickly because the assets and content that we have built up in private cloud is fairly transferable into public cloud as well. There are small changes that we need to make in order to bring it into the public cloud as well. So those are some of the recent innovations that we have shipped and delivered that you can find in Activate and expect them to come to the other roadmaps as well, especially in the public cloud. So that's all I had for you, and I'm looking forward to everybody's questions. With this, Lisa, over to you.
Thanks, John. I should be sharing my screen now. So my name is Lisa Kuch, and I am part of the SAP Activate team. What I'm going to demo for you today is the SAP Activate implementation S/4HANA Cloud 3-system landscape. What you're looking at today is how you would deploy with SAP Activate, specifically with the 3-system landscape. As you see within each of the phases, we do highlight some of the key areas that you would work on in each of those phases. For example, in Discover, you would like to do the discovery assessment. And Prepare, you want to set up and enable. In Explore, you want to do your fit to standard analysis. And then in Realize, obviously, you want to do your configuration, where you would test and reiterate and go through your sprints. You also want to migrate any data from your previous systems, as well as integrate and test as well. Also in Realize is where you can do any development if you need to extend the system for whatever reason. And then in Deploy, you want to onboard your users as well as deploy to production. And then in Run, you want to innovate, operate, and then support. One of the key areas with a 3-system landscape, as you can see indicated in the bottom graph here, is that you do have multiple systems. You have the starter system, a development system, a test system, and a production system. In addition, we would use SAP products such as SAP Central Business Configuration, as well as SAP Cloud ALM, which is what Jan just showed you. As we go through the roadmap, I'll show you some key documents that will help you become familiar with all of those activities, as well as that landscape. Regarding the landscape, this slide just depicts high level the different systems that you would use. One of the key areas is for the identity and authorization services. As mentioned, we do have the Cloud ALM system, as well as CBC. The starter system, this is a system you would get. One of the key things you'll notice is that within the systems, we now have 2 tenants. We have a development tenant as well as a configuration tenant. So those are the tenants that you would use. I'm sorry, development tenant is what it's officially called. Those are the tenants that you would use as you're going through the starter system, and you would use it as well for your fit to standard. We also have the test tenant where you can transport and do your testing. And then lastly, you have the production tenant. So what I will quickly do is show you a demo. What Jan showed you earlier is the COM system. What I will show you right now, and I can also take you through the COM system later on, is Roadmap Viewer. And this is open to the public depending on what your authorization is. We have partner access, customer access, as well as general public access. This gives you a depiction overview of 3-system landscape and the different deliverables involved in each of the different phases, broken up by work streams. You can view a blog, which will highlight our different release schedules and what we would do in each release. We did have a release last week, and our next release will be next Monday. And as you can see in the blog, we do highlight the different areas that have been updated with that last release. And as Jan mentioned, we have different ways of filtering within the Roadmap Viewer. You can filter by the different work streams as well as different product areas. Some of the key tasks that I want to highlight to you is specific for the 3-system landscape. First, in Discover, this would be specific to partners. We do have a partner demonstration landscape. So it walks you through in terms of what you would need to do in order to request it, as well as the initial access. And Prepare, one of the key areas is getting started with your SAP implementation. With the underneath the task review overview documentation, this walks you through the different tasks that will be involved, as well as we have a number of key PowerPoints and accelerators that will help you with your landscape. We have the general overboarding document, as well as the starter system revisioning, as well as the single and multi-country deployment. One of the key areas, as I mentioned, is that we do have two tenants. We have a customizing tenant and development tenant. These tasks will walk you through initializing and preparing your starter system with these tenants. And then in Explorer, Fit to Standard. This is the bulk of Fit to Standard in terms of what you need to do to prepare for your workshop, as well as breaking it down. Once again, we have a number of high-level deliverables and accelerators that will help guide you through all of those tasks. What I'm going to quickly do is also take you to the COM system, where you can view all this content as well. My view is slightly different than Jan's, as you can see, but that's only because I have it filtered a different way. So here you can see that we have the same task as well as all the information. One of the benefits about COM is you can do an overview. Of your project. And from here, you can see the overall status, as well as what has been completed, what needs to be complete, any tasks that are overdue, any upcoming tasks, or any upcoming events or milestones. Another key area that I want to highlight is with the Fit to Standard workshop. In COM, you have the ability to create your requirements for your backlog. So that's something that is important and is very useful in terms of project management and tracking. One of the other benefits is the release cycle. So the release cycle has changed slightly in order to highlight the different deliverable and tasks and help guide you through how to do your updates and your upgrades. We have created a new roadmap. Within this roadmap, we do offer content in terms of the hotfix collections, links to the upgrade schedule, as well as the service level agreements, the trust center, and then the updated schedule itself. One thing to notice with the schedule itself is that instead of 2 weeks, it will be a 3-week period in terms of maintenance. So that is something for you to consider as you're going through your content. I can quickly show you how to access this roadmap within Roadmap Viewer. So if you go to the main homepage in Roadmap Viewer, you can see here we've SAP Activate for Upgrade 3 System Landscape. We also have a direct link within the regular 3 System Landscape roadmap. But here, as you can see, we do walk you through your upgrade preparation, your regression test, as well as your regression test, and then managing the upgrade itself. So for those of you who are preparing for your upgrade, I would highly recommend that you review this roadmap as well. That's it from my end, and I'll now hand it over to Anshul.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, let me just share my screen. Okay. Please let me know when you all can see my screen.
You can see it.
Great, thank you. Okay, so as was presented, I am a product expert working with S/4HANA Cloud. So to give a little bit of overview of my role, I work with customers when they have purchased our product and stay with them for implementation through hypercare after go live. We work as the link between our customers and our development, ensuring that they have as seamless an implementation as possible. So specifically for 3 System Landscape, I have been working as part of the early adopter program prior to this offering becoming generally available. And I have been supporting 2 customers who have been going through this process. Just to give the feedback, my customers are not live with this product yet. We are still implementing, and they are both in the realize space. So in my presentation right now, I will quickly go over a short section about getting started with the implementation, talk a bit about how to manage configuration sprints using Activate accelerators, talk a bit about the transport path because that is very different with this offering. Talk a little bit about the feedback loop that we have formed with Activate. I will touch on some of the learnings we have, and then I will be sharing a new blog post that Lisa and I have written about using this Activate roadmap for 3-system landscape. So I will get started now. Some of this was just reviewed with the slides that Lisa showed, but I just do want to mention that now we use a new product called SAP for Me for all your system provisioning. So once you have begun your implementation, you will provision your access to SAP for Me. And then after that, you will provision all your systems in the order that is mentioned. To give a quick overview, start by first getting Cloud ALM. Once you have ALM and Cloud ALM and SAP for Me, then you can get CBC. CBC has to be first. And you will not see the entitlements for any of the other systems until you have done those few systems first. Once you have your CBC system, Central Business Configuration, you can then request your first 2 starter tenants. So we have the starter development tenant and the starter customizing tenant. And within CBC, then you will set up your projects for those tenants, which is how you will access those tenants. With CBC, there's no direct configuration access. Within S4, everything is done through CBC. Once a project has kicked off, then you will, SAP does recommend you request development, test, and production around the same time. So you would request the development 100 and development 80. And then for test, we only have one tenant, which is the customizing, and same for production. We will follow the same process as it was in 2-system landscape, where once you have production, you do your starter system is decommissioned after 30 days. So next, I wanted to talk about from the perspective of one of my customers. This is talking about how they've been dealing with sprint scheduling and doing the configurations within the system. They are utilizing the Activate accelerators that I've mentioned, such as the Fit to Standard backlog, using the business-driven configuration questionnaire, as well as the SCCUI list. And using this, what they've been able to do is they first started by planning. So figuring out, okay, if we have this number of configurations, how long do we think it would take? And using that estimate, determine how long the sprint should be, and then actually went and planned out the sprints by dates. We are given the guidance by CBC to only activate 5 countries at a time. So that is the guidance that my customers have been going with, using 5 countries, doing all the configurations and testing for those 5 countries, then transporting them from dev to test, and then starting it again. So as you can see, it's a iterative process that just goes circularly, and each time we use the experience from the previous sprint schedule to perform the next round of customization. So for the customer that I've used these screenshots from, they are on their 3rd round of customizations, and this is definitely helping them manage this, especially since they're a customer with many number of countries going live. It's been a good way for them to stay organized while they are going through their realized phase. The next item I do want to talk about that has been different for customers with this product is that the transport path has a few more complexities than it did before, since we do have more tenants. So as you can see, as I mentioned, the development tenant is the only one that has the customizing 100 and the development 80. And within the development system, you'll have several different types of transports that can be created. So for customizing, we have all of the key user extensibility, any of the business configuration transport requests, and anything related to CBC. So that means adding new scope, org structure, countries, things like that. And then the tenant 80 development tenant is only meant for developer extensibility. So all of these transports, they get released into the D2T buffer, imported into test, forwarded to the test to production buffer, that imported into production. Another feature that SAP has delivered is that there is transport automation. So once you release this into the buffer, you can set an automated job that will run at whatever defined number of times that you define to import those transports into test as well as into production. You could also choose to turn off the automation and manually import, which some customers prefer to do when they're in implementation. But for a live customer, it's probably most helpful to have that automation running on whatever defined time period. The next item I do want to talk about is that, as I mentioned, we were in an early adopter program. So one of the most important things about that program was giving feedback from our customers to help better the product before the offering could be, released. So we worked with the Activate team during this process to have this continuous feedback loop. Two of the examples was in CBC, when you're already in the configuration stage, if you'd like to go back and add additional scope or organizational structure, you cannot configure at the same time. It's only one or the other. So we added a procedure note saying that when you want to add new scope or organizational structure, develop a project plan that maybe you will add it only at the end of a workday or over the weekend. So if you are on a tight configuration timeline, it wouldn't impact you. And the second example of feedback that we gave to Activate was that there was an accelerator that was specifically related to the two system landscape around the Flex org tool, which does not exist because we have CPC now. We asked them to have it removed. So just wanted to explain during this early adopter program what we have done to help better and improve the Activate methodology for our customers. And then I just want to wrap up by talking a bit about the learnings that we have had. The first, number one, is always follow the Activate methodology. It is there for a reason. I'm always regularly referring my customers to look at it because sometimes the questions they ask me, the answers are there, and it's best that they actually review the contents. We always refer customers to follow the Activate methodology. We always encourage them to have a cloud mindset, especially for any customers who are coming from an on-premise solution. There are differences in cloud that they need to be aware of. So enabling themselves on that and being prepared for that before starting the implementation is very important. And then the third item is all about documentation. This is a different product, especially for customers who may have experience with two system landscape. They should enable themselves, especially transport management will be very different for them. So making sure they're enabled on the different transport types. As I mentioned, the transport automation, how to manage dependencies, and what is in a transport versus what is in the software collection. So these are all things to be enabled on. And then we do recommend using a fewer number of transports. That is something we've seen during the early adopter program. It's helpful to have a less number of transports. We actually recommend one default customizing transport per sprint. And then finally, I didn't touch too much about this, but we do have this ABAP developer extensibility in this product. And so if a customer is choosing to use it, we recommend that they enable on Eclipse, which is the ABAP development tool, as well as all the features that are available with this developer extensibility. And then the last item, as I had mentioned, Lisa and I did publish this new blog post about using Activate for the 3-system landscape. So I'll just quickly show you, and I think we'll be putting the link in the chat for you to look at. So we went through a quick overview of the 3-system landscape and what has changed with this new offering, what has improved, and then we went through discover, prepare, explore, realize, and run, and mentioned some of the key deliverables, tasks, and accelerators that will help you with your implementation. And that is all I have from my side.
Thank you, guys. As we mentioned, then we're going to jump into the Q&A portion of the call now. Feel free to type your questions in the chat. And to kick us off, Anshul, one of the questions that I want to start with in the chat was, can we transport from starter pack as well?
And I think the question is about starter system.
Okay, yeah. So no, there's no connection from your starter system to development. Is a standalone system.
Though, Angela, just for clarity, I think we should talk about developer extensibility, because you can move developer extensibility through GitHub, right? So there's a way to move code from starter to your development system using GitHub. But the transports of configuration are not set up between starter and development. So that's just for clarity, because we talked about, developer extensibility. It's there. It's a new thing that most people have not experienced yet. So I think that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah. Thank you, Jan.
Sure.
So another question I had, I know you guys shared the roadmaps and talked about the 3-system landscape. What is the difference between the 3-system landscape and the S/4HANA Cloud roadmap?
I could take this one. The primary difference is that we have an extra system. As you saw during my section, I did highlight the different landscape. And within the landscape, we do have development system, the test system, and now the production system. Whereas before, in the previous 2-system landscape, you just had the quality system and the production system. So that's one of the primary differences.
Awesome.
As well as the required use of COM and CPC. Before it was more optional.
Okay.
And that's another place where our blog post is definitely very helpful, because in it we do highlight what has changed.
Okay. And then are starter and 3-tier all provisioned with the full code line scope?
Well, let me take that. So we are talking about 3-system landscape in S/4HANA Public Cloud. It has the full functionality. The functionality in terms of functional coverage across finance, logistics, and all the functional areas is the same for all customers. What has changed is some of the technology underlying that functionality. A lot more flexibility in developer extensibility, so ability to code in ABAP in that environment in 3-system landscape. Additional system, so you can have true test environment before you push the functionality into production. Then you, of course, have the enhancements that are added to the transport management system that allows you to manage your transports much more granular. So you can move smaller elements across, whereas in 2-system landscape, you were limited to the one change request that had to be closed every sprint. Now you have a little more flexibility. It also increases the management that you need to put around it, especially when you think about transport management. We have seen customers with hundreds of transports, not necessarily the best utilization of it, because you are creating dependencies between those transports if you're doing actions on the same object and storing them in different transports. So that needs to be managed a lot more in 3-system landscape.
Awesome. Thank you, Jan. And then for everybody, and this is a question from the chat, when will existing 2SL customers get converted to 3SL, and is that free?
Stay tuned. We're not ready to talk about it on this call. Let's focus on Activate, please. You have Activate experts on the call. We can talk about implementation projects, upgrades, experience in that sense. When it comes to actual technology, stay tuned for official announcements from SAP.
Awesome. Thank you. And then taking us back a little, right? Anshul, you kind of talked about the expertise from your end and some of the learnings. What are some of the best practices from a customer viewpoint on using 3-system landscape?
So I think the first thing I highlighted about following our documentation, that's always number one, and that hasn't changed. I gave that guidance even when we were implementing 2-system landscape. Always take the time to enable. I genuinely feel that some of the issues customers encountered could be resolved if they spend a little bit more time enabling on the material. In terms of transport management, the best practice of, as I said, using fewer transports, regularly transporting. One thing I actually just realized I forgot to mention on that slide is that especially transports to your production system, they cannot be older than N+1 release. So if it's been 2 releases, you'd have to recreate that transport. So definitely, especially during implementation, when customers perhaps want to hold on to that starter system for longer, they may not request production for some time, but that can be a negative too, because if it ends up being 2 releases have passed, they can't transport those initial transports. So as recommended, try if you can provision dev, test, and production at the same time so that you can transport everything into the end. And I'm trying to think of, in terms of project management, definitely have a very defined project plan, plan backwards. So if you know the go live date you want, figure out how long everything will take, always add a bit more time because it always takes longer than you think, and work backwards to allow for anything that could potentially go not the way you want it to.
So one thing to add, Anshul mentioned about the transports. There is a transport configuration help, which is linked in the Activate task transport management. That would something that we would highly recommend you review. I know that the owner of the transport management has also released a number of different sessions that he's recorded. So for those of you who are working with the transports, that is something that we would highly recommend, because you do run into scenarios such as the one Anshul mentioned with the +1. Another area to highlight that I think Anshul highlighted as well, and that we put in our blog, is the project experience guide that is also linked within the roadmap in one of our tasks about setting up your starter system, both customizing and development. There is an accelerator out there called Project Experience Help. That is also something that I think we would both recommend that you review, that will help you with your implementation.
And if I can add to it, this roadmap that Lisa talked about and the experiences that Anshul talked about, we've been going through this program for many months. So this roadmap has been developed alongside of developing the capabilities and features and testing them with select customers. So what you're getting when you get into the roadmap viewer or use that roadmap in Cloud ALM, you're getting very refined version of the roadmap that we paid attention to and enhanced over months. We are not stopping here, of course. We continue to listen to feedback and refine and adjust as we get feedback, as new capabilities get released. But you're getting very refined product out of the Activate team with this release that we just did a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. And then to add to what Jan just said, feedback's important, and if you want to know how to collect the feedback, I did post a link in the chat on how you can submit feedback. There's a good blog post by Dan that I linked through, and then the roadmaps are linked in the chat as well. And any questions that we haven't answered here, please do use the community and type your questions in there. And this team and our broader Activate team does look at those and answer those questions. So feel free to reach out anytime. And then moving our conversation forward, there are a couple questions in the chat as well. Talking about the adoption framework. Is the adoption framework just a group of Activate tasks relating to adoption? What type of tasks go into that group? So Jan, I think this is more directed towards you since you shared about the adoption framework in your slides.
Yeah, I was just reading it as well. That's why I'm kind of, like like a deer in the headlights. But yeah, I was looking at that question. So the adoption framework is basically a list of activities that are tailored for increasing or accelerating the adoption of RISE offerings with the customer that acquired RISE offering. So it's a specific engagement from the SAP side that empowers the customer to know exactly the sequence of steps, the activities they need to do, the activities that their SI will be doing, and activities that SAP will be doing in that engagement. And we have basically, if you look at it, it's a compression of the entire Activate to the essential steps in Activate that you need in that initial adoption of Rise with SAP. So it will highlight some of the enablement activities that SAP will deliver, some of the expectations on the customer when it comes to, say, data preparation for data migration, organizational change management, requirements gathering. Kind of it ties to Activate almost one-to-one, and think of it as a way of expressing roles and responsibilities in the engagement based on a predefined template.
Awesome. Thanks, Jan. And I hope that answered your question in the chat. The next question in our chat is, does CBC also support private cloud S/4HANA Cloud provisioning and configuration?
I can take that. No, it does not. Currently, CBC supports only our public cloud offering.
And is there a timeline for private cloud?
Not as far as I'm aware.
Okay. Thank you, Anshul. And then there is an accelerator, availability dependencies accelerator, that says use the document before provisioning of your tenant to decide on the appropriate scope for your needs. How important is that?
It is pretty important because it will give you the dependencies between the scope items. So you will know which scope items will be included in your scope. If there are dependent scope items in your project scope, this accelerator will explain how they're dependent. And that's part of the best practices package that our customers are activating. So they will give them a clear runway for fit to standard, because that will tell them these are the scope items that you should be discussing in fit to standard and reviewing with the customer in fit to standard.
Awesome. Thanks, Jan.
Sure.
And then kind of talking about the feedback and how we are asking and collecting that feedback. How do I know if my feedback is taken into consideration, and where do I see the updates?
So you can see the updates in the blog that is released. We have multiple feedback channels. If you have a current project, we do have the feedback channel through your PEs as well as through the project itself, and that is tracked within the program. If you want to provide general feedback on the roadmap, on the roadmap viewer, there is a little feedback icon. And from there, I'm not sure, Nisha, if you want to share where that is, you can provide feedback, and that goes directly to the Activate team, which we monitor on a regular basis. So we do take that feedback, and you will get a response based upon that feedback. You can also provide feedback through the community. As you mentioned earlier, people can send in the questions they have through the community, or if they have general feedback, and then we can respond there as well.
Awesome. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Dan's blog goes more into details on the different feedback channels that Lisa just mentioned.
And I have posted the release notes blog post that Lisa updates every time we make changes into the roadmap. So that's in the chat on YouTube. And you can always find the link to it on a landing page in Roadmap Viewer. So when you open the content page or the overview page in the roadmap, in Roadmap Viewer, there's a little text to the right side where you can find important links. And one of those links is to the release notes.
Awesome. Thank you. And then there's a question from the chat again. Is the mainline, project line, and developer line available now? If not, do you know when will it be available?
So let me take that one. So all customers that are provisioned now going forward on 3-system landscape are getting the development line or developer line and the main line, and the project line is under development. So that's still on the roadmap that will be published. It's not published to my knowledge yet.
Awesome. Thank you, Jan.
Sure.
And then you guys talked about the upgrade cycle and what that looks like for 3-system landscape. What happens during an upgrade cycle and how does that affect downtime, and what can customers expect?
I can take that one. So there's 2 types of downtime you will see during the upgrades. If the first is actually in your central business configuration. It's not down in terms of using the product, but you wouldn't be able to deploy anything new to your S4 system for good reason. And I'm going to actually, I can just share, if you give me 1 second. Okay, so, and I'll send this link so we can put it in YouTube as well. But this is a new note that was published by the Central Business Configuration team about this project deployment lock. And it gives you the times when it will start in UTC based off of your region. And this is for updates, which means hotfix collections. And then the upgrades are different as well. So we'll share this so that you can expect. And then on the actual upgrade and maintenance schedule, which is an accelerator that Lisa had mentioned in her portion of the presentation, it does talk about the weekends that there's downtimes, which is we already have it planned out for the next year, the 2 major upgrades, as well as the actual times by region. So I hope that helps answer that question.
Yep, it does. Thank you, Anjal. And then I also wanted to, I guess this question is more directed towards Jan. You talked about the experience management transformation and how it's available in private cloud. Can we also see that in other roadmaps, and what does that look like, and how does that differ from the Activate implementation? I know there are like 3 questions in that one question.
Well, let me tackle at least one of them if I remember them all. So as you said, Nisha, we have released it first in private cloud edition. I think we talked about it in our last community call. Something tells me that we had experts talk about it. What we have done just recently as part of evaluating the feedback, looking at the content, we analyzed that the content is relatively easy to bring into the public cloud with small revisions that we need to do. So we have brought in experts that are working through it with my team, and you can expect that pretty shortly. I don't want to commit to a specific date because we may miss it by a week or 2. And I don't want to be having you calling me that we missed it by a week or 2, but we are working on it, and it will be in Activate very quickly, and then Lisa will write about it in the release notes, and we'll most likely have a post on the community dedicated to it to let you all know that that's indeed in there. If you can't wait to use it, for the most part, the questions actually fit nicely. You may need to edit some of them if they mention private cloud, because, product dependency, but otherwise they should be pretty close.
Awesome. Thanks, Jan. And I'll look forward to the new additions and the different roadmaps. And I'm assuming it will be available in the 3-system landscape as well, since that's a topic of today.
It will be in the 3-system landscape first, and then we'll consider it for the other flavors of Activate.
Awesome, thank you. And then I know we just have a quick, like 4 minutes left, but I wanted to ask about the RISE implementations, right? Like, how does SAP Activate help with RISE projects, and how does it enhance the implementations with RISE?
So let me talk about a few things. So there is a standard set of steps that we recommend our customers to follow. We just had a session with one of our colleagues that's looking at customer projects and evaluating how to keep them successful. And what's really interesting is that one data point that he shared with us, which was that thanks to some of the changes in how Activate approaches implementation project, some of the things that were very critical and impactful, if they were missed, they're not as critical and impactful now, because Activate kind of enforces you to do them, like involving business early, getting business involved in fit to standard, keeping them and shepherding them throughout the implementation. So that's kind of on a general level. That's not RISE specific. That's how Activate changed the implementations overall. When it comes to RISE specifically, as part of the RISE offering, customer gets entitlements for additional services. Previously, these services were not included in Activate, and we have started building them out into the private cloud. Now we're going to bring that content into public cloud. So all customers that are using or implementing with RISE with SAP will have a detailed guidance on enablement that's necessary, all the services that they should be including in their project scope, and how to consume them throughout the execution of the project. One such improvement is that adoption framework that is the view of the essential activities in RISE implementations.
Awesome. Thank you, Jan. Thank you for sharing your insights. And then this question, like I would like to hear from all of you. It's what, in your view, is the cloud mindset, and how does that apply to Activate, and how does it help our customers? Don't jump in.
I can go first. Immediate access. I think one of the benefits of having everything in the cloud is you can access something immediately. If you make a change, it's right there. As you can see with, for example, with the Cloud LLM, which Jan and I both showed very quickly, you can access in terms of your reporting. You can go out there and get up to date, up to the minute information in terms of your project status, what tasks you have open, any milestones, etc. So being able to access that immediately in the cloud instead of having to run reports in the back end and then share Excels, etc., I think that's a huge benefit for all customers.
Thanks, Lisa.
I can go next. So for me, I think even more specifically towards upgrades, we offer upgrades on a more regular occurrence than you would have had in the on-premise product. So in the cloud mindset, to understand that you're in a product that will be updated regularly. And you see it in your daily life with your iPhone. So it's the same thing now with SAP as well. And then also bearing in mind that there might be some standard functionalities that everything might not be customizable to the degree that you were used to before. We'll be fitting our functionalities to a standard model.
That's great. You guys have taken all of it from me. So
no,
it's perfect. This is perfect. What I wanted to say is, to me, it is not starting from scratch, not rebuilding best practices, not reinventing the wheel. Started with something that SAP put together and then build on top of it. That's really the cloud mindset when it comes to implementations. When it comes to consumption of the service, that's basically what Anshul said. You know, you're getting the updates and improvements to the service as you go, and we see a lot more, you know, shorter implementation cycles and incremental additions to it as you go. So that to me is cloud mindset.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. And thank you for being our speakers today and sharing your expertise. I really enjoyed the call, and I hope everybody who joined us today liked the call. And again, for any feedback, any Activate related content, please follow our community. And as we mentioned at the beginning of the call, there are SAP Activate minutes that come out every Friday. You don't have to watch it on Friday, but they're available on YouTube. So please subscribe to that playlist and you'll get more content information. You will see these faces on those Activate minutes as well. So, I do want to plug in that if you want to know more about the 3-system landscape, Anshul and Lisa just wrote a blog post that's available in the community. And a sneak peek, Lisa also did a couple of Activate minutes on 3-system landscape that you'll have access to over the coming weeks. So again, thank you guys for joining, and we look forward to hearing from you and your interaction on the community. And thank you, Jan, Lisa, and Anshul for sharing your insights on this call today.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.